So crazy because I'm standing on the front steps of the Justice Center on the portico, and all of a sudden this object comes flying through the air, and like I'll never forget it. It comes flying through the air, and it hits my chest, and I catch on fire.
Doggy! And so this story actually has a little bit to do with your time in Portland. So I think no one else can tell it like you can. So would you share that with us?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the first time I've actually. So I've shared the story with like close friends, family, that sort of thing, and of course everybody at my agency knows about it. I was. Lars Larson put out a bunch of stuff and was like trying to get me to come on. I respectfully declined. It's not that I don't care for the show or anything like that, but especially with everything that was going on at that point in time, I was like afraid that I was going to be doxxed. I was going to be followed home. So I didn't want to tell anybody the story.
Right.
I was very concerned for my safety and for the safety of my family.
Absolutely.
And so it was, oh my gosh. How much time do we have?
We're probably good for like 15 minutes or so.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So I'll really kind of have to go back to the beginning because, so after the death of George Floyd, I had been assigned to the rapid response team, but I was assigned to Multnomah County Sheriff's Office team. And so the Gresham team and the county team, we would form up, and we had enough bodies to actually make a whole team.
Okay.
And so we would always work together. We trained together, all that kind of stuff. Really, really super great group of people, by the way. I have a lot of love and respect for those folks. And then also, we would go and we would assist Portland RRT, another great group of people, by the way. So when this thing started kicking off with the George Floyd situation, I was like, I called people at Multnomah County and I was like, hey, I'm starting to notice that there's a little unrest going on throughout the country. Like, do we have any plan? Are we going to deploy? Like, what's the deal?
What's the deal?
And they were like, no, haven't heard anything. Everything's cool. Everything's hunky-dory.
Mm-hmm.
So myself, I told my guys, I said, hey, just have your stuff. Take it home with you. Have it with you.
Your rapid response stuff.
Yeah, like all of our gear. Like just have it with you, just in case.
Okay, and that all entails the shields and everything.
Yeah, and so I'm just like, have all your stuff because we don't. I'm like, it's Portland. There's no way that there isn't going to be something going on. You know what I mean? Right. So at about 11:30 that night, I think it was May 29th. May 29th, I got a frantic phone call from one of my partners who works for MCSO, and he's like, you got to get down here. The Justice Center's on fire. They've gotten inside, and my life completely changed from that moment. I ended up going down there. The first night, there was a lot of violence, but it was really quick. There was some issues between, communication between, like, Multnomah County runs the jail, but Portland has the Justice Center, Portland has their central precinct inside the Justice Center. So there was, like, this kind of push-pull over whether or not Portland would go defend the Justice Center, or, like, who was going to, it was just, it was a mess. So we get there, and then for the next, I don't know how many days, probably 60 plus days, I was down there, working. I would get a day off, here and there to go do something or whatever. But like I was
after your work day, you got called out.
Yes, I'd go downtown. And so our mission, mainly was to protect the Justice Center, and then to keep people away from the building because not only do we have a ton of civilian staff and people that work inside the Justice Center, we also have like a ton of inmates that like need to be protected, and you can't like have that place burning down. So it was absolute craziness. The first several nights we had literally thousands of people out in front of the Justice Center, surrounding Central Precinct, in the parks across the street, from the Justice Center. Downtown was getting destroyed. You did have some groups of people. It was interesting too because standing there those first couple of days, there was definitely like. You could see it in the crowd, the tension in terms of like those who wanted to be peaceful and those who wanted to just like burn everything down. And especially too at nightfall, things would get super rowdy. We would have things thrown at us. We would have, rocks, bottles. People would be like, "Oh, it's just a water bottle." Oh, no. Water bottles filled, full water bottles, frozen water bottles filled with batteries, pebbles, urine, feces, anything you can imagine. People would take those. I don't know if you remember as a kid, but those slingshots where like one person stands on each side and then you stand back, launching like rocks this big. We had rocks penetrate the Justice Center.
Yeah.
These thick glass and boarding and everything, and they were like penetrating the inside of the Justice Center. It was insane. At one point, they had put up a fence around the Justice Center. It was like a couple days into it, and I remember, like, as the day went on, the crowd just got more and more hostile and more angry, and you could just feel it. And people are like, they're threatening your lives, they're taking your photograph, they're, threatening your family, they're going to follow you home. It just goes on and on and on and on. And it's like, that's why I think RRT was like so tight, because it's like you and like, in our case, maybe 50 people tops, and then like thousands of people, and you're just taking this in for hours at a time. And
Tommy, do you ever get to the place where you're desensitized or tune it out, or do you always hear it?
It's interesting, and actually, like, I can speak to that a little bit. For the first part of this too, they didn't give us any type of like communication systems. We just had our earpieces for our microphones.
Yeah.
And so you would crank your mic up, and so you would hear commands, it was like deafening, because you have this crowd that's screaming at you, but then you have like this deafening noise because you have to hear what's going on, what command wants you to do, or like what the plan is. Mm-hmm. And so then you would, so the noise is like super loud. Over time, it was so funny because I would come home, I would fall asleep, and I would still hear the noise. You know what I mean? I would just hear it, and I'd hear it, and I'd hear it. And so finally, somebody was like, "You guys need some actual like communications sets." You know what I mean? Right. So we got SWAT's old ones, the hand-me-downs, but hey, it was fine because we were able to I could literally like turn down the volume, completely shut out the crowd, and just hear what I needed to hear.
Oh,
and
so
that
it was like noise canceling.
Oh my God, that made a huge difference.
Wow.
So, but before all that happened, like I said, on this particular day, it was hotter than hell. People were getting super aggravated. The fence was up. And it just got to a point where this crowd really worked itself into a fever pitch. The fence started to come down. They're coming towards the Justice Center. We're getting stuff thrown at us, and there's nowhere for us to go. The only thing we can do is try to rally up really quick and retreat into the building. But the thing is, we can't let anybody in that building. So we're throwing smoke, gas, whatever we can, and we're still getting stuff lobbed at us, and people are coming at us. And then it was so crazy because I'm standing on the front steps of the Justice Center on the portico, and all of a sudden this object comes flying through the air, and like I'll never forget it. It comes flying through the air, and it hits my chest, and I catch on fire. And I'm like overcome with smoke. My gas mask, gets breached. I can't see a damn thing, and I'm really disoriented, and because we didn't really have any communications, like I had nothing to project on my gas mask. Uh-huh. And my partners didn't have it either. So I'm sitting there, and I'm like, and my chest is on fire, and my good buddy he's now a sergeant at MCSO, he's screaming at me, but he's got his gas mask on, and I can't hear an effing word that he's saying, but he's going,
yeah.
Uh-huh. And I'm like, and he's like,
oh my goodness.
And so, like, the next thing I know, people are grabbing onto me, and they're ripping all my gear off, and they drag me into the Justice Center, and I kind of fall to my knees, and I'm kind of like realizing what had happened. They're like, "Dude, you're on fire," and I was just like, and it was so funny because all I could say was, "I'm sorry." I got taken offline, and that's all I could tell them was like, that's the only thing I remember saying to these guys was like, I'm sorry. And they're like, "What are you sorry for?" And I just said, I got to get back out there. Like, "Oh, no, you're not going back out there." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm going. Just give me a minute." And I took, I was able to kind of clear the smoke from my eyes and everything else, and I went back out there, and then it just didn't it was just relentless, and it was frustrating. It was sad. It was leadership. There was just a ton of push-pull in terms of leadership. Every day was something different.
I just want to take a minute.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
You just told us you were literally on fire.
Yep.
And you have the dedication and the fortitude and the will desire to do your job to protect the people that need to protect. That you took a minute, you geared back up, and you went right back out into the hell.
Yep.
So let's add a little caveat to it. And they were prisoners as well as other people.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
You were protecting.
You were protecting prisoners.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. But you were on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you projected that forward.
Yeah.
I want to make a point of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that you're not the only one like this.
Oh God, no. They're all.
People
Yeah.
need to hear this, and the reason why they need to hear this is they need to understand the type of people that tend to serve in law enforcement. And that does not come from an alpha personality. That does not come from a racist or whatever other type of horrible things that they've called law enforcement. That comes from someone who has a heart, a desire to do their job and to serve. Nothing else. They can't come from anything else. Because you had every opportunity to go, wow, I can
Peace.
step out of this. Yeah, peace. I'm done. I just got set on fire, you know?
Yes.
But you went back out there because you have that in you. And I want people to understand that is what a law enforcement officer is.
So to go piggyback off
Yes,
of what
please.
you were just saying about the races, we need to stop it. We need to stop it. I have an opportunity to know this guy. Just met him a couple of months ago, and had a chance to just do life with him. And there's not one bit of racism in him. And so we just need to stop putting every apple into one basket. We need to stop it.
Exactly. And these people that serve this way is what they want to defund you. They want to take your protections away. They want to take your guns away. They want to take your paycheck away. And they want to make it hard for you when you are standing, whether it's criminal or whether it's innocent civilian, you are standing between the aggression force and the force that needs that protection. You are the line in between that, and people need to see and understand that.
Yeah.
So.
Huh?